The fastest way to make money in real estate investing. It's a question I get all the time. Today's show is all about how to get your first $40,000 in a matter of days with this strategy. That's today's show. Let's dive into it.
Here we are at our very first rental property.
Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris, longtime real estate investor, and I got started wholesaling real estate. And one of the ways that I got started was driving for dollars. The problem, though, with driving for dollars is there wasn't a system to do it. You know, driving around neighborhoods, trying to find vacant houses, trying to get those houses under contract, and then being able to flip that to an end buyer and making $10,000, $15,000 for every transaction. The problem was there was no system in place. Well, that's where today's guest comes into this. His name is Zack Boothe. He has created Driving for Dollars Mastery, which is a course that teaches you how to do this. And he's built an entire system and framework around it, and he's going to tell us all about it today. Zack, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Clayton.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you here on the show. We've become friends over the past year. We have a lot of friends in common in the wholesaling business. Tell me, how did you get started with wholesaling and driving for dollars? Take me back to the beginning of this journey.
Yeah, so I was actually a window cleaner, world's best window cleaner for sure. And it was something I started when I was 17. Definitely wasn't something that I aspired to stay in my whole life. And I wanted to get into real estate. I bought my first rental. That's why I got into wholesaling, is to find rentals. And it was an amazing opportunity. I was making a ton of money passively. And I thought, wow, this is way better than washing windows. Like I want to get more of this.
Right.
But I was struggling because, getting loans and finding deals. And it was just, my real estate agent wasn't bringing me anything that made sense. And, even if he did, I didn't have the ability to put down payments for a secondary property. There was just so many issues and barriers that I ran into. And then I learned about something called wholesaling, which our mentor in common, calls, the art of finding discounted properties. And I was like, well, that's what I need to do. I need to get good at finding discounted properties if I want to build a rental, a bunch of rentals, or even just find deals and sell them for cash so I could have money for down payments for loans and so forth. And so I actually got a coach before Tom Kroll, and I learned a lot, but I never did any deals from it. And the main problem is he didn't really give any marketing strategies. He kind of taught you how to do all these creative things once you found a deal, but there was no real meat and potatoes on how to find the deal. And that's when I met Tom, and I got some great strategies and learned a bunch of different strategies on finding deals. And I started doing okay. I was doing a deal here or there. It allowed me to quit washing windows. I sold that business and I went full time. And then a couple of years ago, after about a year of wholesaling, which is just finding deals and flipping those deals immediately to other investors, I was like, well, how do I take this to the next level? How do I really make money doing this? And so I learned about driving for dollars, which is traditionally not the easiest way to find deals, and was able to put together a system that in a year we made almost $500,000 the first year doing it.
Wow.
Just from driving for dollars.
And I should mention, Zack, that you and I are going to be doing a live webinar together where we really go deep in this strategy. So this episode is really sort of an entry level to this strategy and mastery. We'll have a link below in the description. People can go to morrisinvest.com/driving to sign up and register. And you and I will be live on this webinar taking people through this strategy, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that webinar, like you said, we'll go into depth on how to consistently find these deals, all the different strategies that I've learned, that I've used. I'm going to talk about every single one of those, and you're going to get all of that information for free. And then I'm going to dive into my coaching course that I break down exactly what I do, exactly how I set up my driving for dollar system, and then how I reach out to those sellers.
Like I mentioned sort of at the beginning, one of the frustrations for me was the system. having a system in place, because I would just, I didn't have a lot of money. When I started in real estate investing and I was wholesaling, I was driving around neighborhoods just kind of trying to find houses that had snow on the walkways that hadn't been shoveled, high grass during the summer with violations, or a pile of newspapers in the driveway. But you decided to take it a next step and actually build a framework around it. Can you talk me through that process? What was that mindset like for you?
Yeah, it was a major learning curve, getting there was a lot of trial and error and a lot of money thrown away, making mistakes. I ended up becoming a coach for the sheer fact to give back. The end of 2018, I had done about $500,000 from Driving for Dollars. And I was like, well, I'm pretty much tapped out. I want to do $1 million in 12 months, but I didn't know how to do that. I thought that I had tapped out my market. The Driving for Dollar system that I had was the biggest it was ever going to be. And I was reading a journal or a self-help journal called Living Your Best Year Ever by Darren Hardy. And in there, it talks about giving away whatever you want to receive. And so I decided to start teaching other people my marketing system so that I could give $1 million to these students, because I didn't have $1 million cash. I still don't. And so, that was how I was going to give away $1 million so I could make $1 million. And the coolest thing happened as I started teaching these students that, yes, they paid me to teach them. I started finding a ton of flaws and holes in my system. So the system that I have is accumulation of a lot of very intelligent and even way more experienced minds than my own. So the system that we've created, to answer your question, Clayton, I just wanted to mention like where this system came from and how much time and money and effort's gone into this. But the Driving for Dollar system, you can break it down into 3 parts. The first part is accumulating that list of rundown properties, right? And we, with the systems, with the technologies that we use, and the criteria, we're finding anywhere from 20 to 100 properties every single hour of driving. So in my market, I have one driver that drives 2.5, 3 days a week, and we're usually right at about 2,000 addresses a week in our market.
Smokes, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, because
it is crazy.
I don't think. No, I've mentioned finding snow, high grass, newspapers in the yard, things like that. But not every property is going to look that way. Those are the ones that are just obvious from a visual perspective. Yeah. But you're using software to identify these houses, even taking it one step further. Am I right?
Very much so. Yeah. So we're using an app and a technologies that allow us to pull the data immediately. Soon as we see those deals, we're adding them. And it's uploaded in an Excel spreadsheet. It's a beautiful system. We use an app. I'll tell you, we use an app called DealMachine. And then I have a discount code PIN, where you can actually have the map, the master map free for 2 months. So that's part of the technologies. The other part of it is the criteria that we use, meaning, what we add and what we pass over. And so I call it my Driving for Dollars cheat sheet. So this is things like you mentioned, snow, broken windows, cars parked up on the grass, ruining the grass, just all of those different things. So a combination of using that technology, the criteria that you use, you can add that many properties per hour. So that's step 1 of the system, right? Is making sure you add enough. And there's definitely quite a bit more to it that I go into very exact detail in my course. But that's step 1. Step 2 is reaching out to that list, right? I mean, there's lots of strategies out there.
What's your favorite strategy on reaching out to that list? Because I think for a lot of people, they get scared about that part, and if you can overcome that piece of this, you can build and make a lot of money with this. I used to make 80 to 100 phone calls a day on my list that were coming in, leads that I had. I used to be on the phone constantly. So do you have to make phone calls? Do you have to send emails? What does that reach out look like? for you?
Yeah, so there's a couple strategies. I like to do phone calls. So I teach two strategies in my course. I teach postcards and I teach cold calling. So the postcards that I offer, I offer the exact template, the best possible pricing. It's just really simple. I've got it all set up with a company that does all of our stuff. And that's a great passive way. It's a little more expensive than calling. So if you have time and budget, cold calling is probably the best. And so I also have a bonus to my course where I go into depth on how to use a cold calling platform called Mojo. So you can call 3 people at one time. It's a very slick system. You're not hand dialing anything. You can call like crazy. So I remember the very first time I jumped onto Mojo Dialer and started calling a list. It actually wasn't a Driving for Dollars list. It was a different list. But I had learned how to do this from Brent Daniels. And I looked at it counts how much time you've been on there. I literally had been dialing for 11 minutes. A lady answered. And she's like, yeah, I'd love to sell it. I'm actually over here dealing with it right now. What are you doing? I was like, I'm on my way. So I ran to her house. And 11 minutes in, I went and got the contract that day, sent it out to my cash buyers list. A flipper bought it and paid me $9,000 for the contract. 11 minutes on the dialer.
That's amazing.
And so, it's crazy. It's almost mind blowing. Going from window cleaning to making $9,000 in 11 minutes is just crazy. It was a whole different world that I had never seen.
And a lot of people think that they can't do it or that they need an enormous amount of money. And we'll get to step 3 here on your process in a moment. But you mentioned something to me before we started. You said, Clayton, you may want to tell your audience this, but I am going to be spending 40 days in Florida. Right now you're in snowbound Utah and you're packing up.
It's terrible.
You're going to be going to Florida and you're going to just do it for 40 days as a challenge. Tell me about this challenge. So people listening right now who think, oh, I can't do this, you're going to build it from the ground up again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like people hear my interviews like this and see me and go, oh, this kid's just different, right? Like he's got a team now. He's got people to go on appointments for him. He's got a cold calling team. Of course, he's making a ton of money. And he has money already. It takes money to make money. And guys, if it took money to make money, I'd still be a window cleaner, right? I mean, it's hard to relate with someone that's already has success, and I understand that. So I was laying in bed one night, and I just couldn't sleep because I was like, how do I inspire people? How do I get people to understand that they can do it? Like I'm nobody special, and I had watched a show called Undercover Billionaire, where he does something somewhat similar to this. He takes $100 and he has like 60 or 90 days or something like that to build a business that the valuation's $1 million. It's an awesome, super inspiring show. And I had the idea to move my family to Florida or anywhere really. We ended up choosing Florida just because of the beach and Disneyland. It really doesn't matter. It's gonna be done all over. Yeah, that's my criteria of why I chose the location, Disney and beach, right? It has nothing to do with the real estate market.
Smart move.
So so I got to keep my wife happy, right? While I work crazy hours. So we're going to end up in Florida, and I'm going to take $1,000 that I get to use for marketing. And my goal is to turn that into $40,000 in 40 days. It's not going to be easy. It's very possible to blow that out of the water. Like I have a student that I talk about in the live webinar actually, and he just sent me his report for 2019. He joined the course in May of 2019. His very first week of driving, he brought in a deal that made him $113,000 profit. And that's not any like remodeling, nothing. Like that's finding the deal and getting rid of it to another flipper.
Right. Getting the contract, getting it under contract. You're selling the paper to a flipper that wants to spend 9 months renovating it. You're not doing anything.
I think he ended up closing on it I think he ended up closing on it with private money and then selling it to a flipper. But I mean, it was a couple days. But yes, he very much could have just sold the contract. If your contracts are assignable, you can just assign them for a fee.
That's great.
So I mean, I could get there in the first week, make 40, 50 grand on one deal. But one thing I've learned is, the funny thing is he did all this marketing, and I think he's done like 300,000 and 200 in 2019 from I have his report. He sent it to me, but the thing he noticed was a lot of this stuff, like he pinned another one in the very first week that ended up cashing out in November. And so a lot of the times the deals that the people that you talk to, it may take some nurturing and some time. So probably only 10% of your deals are what I call low hanging fruit, right? Where they're ready to sell right then when you first contact them. So if I make $40,000 in those 40 days, I really actually made much, much more than that.
But yeah, because a lot of these deals could pop 6-7 months from now. That was my experience.
Exactly.
One of my early deals, brought me tens of thousands of dollars, but it was because I had contacted them 6 months before, and I had a follow-up system that enabled me to reach out to them again. They said, "Is your offer still good? We didn't want to sell it, now we do." 6 months later. So that early work that you're putting in, you're laying the foundation for later success, right?
Right, exactly. And so, going and doing this, $1,000. So I teach my students that if you have at least $50 a week, you can start, you can get going. And I'm going to take a total of $1,000. I may even take a second job or figure out how to make more money to get a little bit more money for marketing, because the more you dump into marketing, the more leads you can produce. And like I said, I need to find some low-hanging fruit. And obviously, I'm going to make way more than the 40,000 if I do hit the 40,000 over time. But I've only got 40 days to prove this. So, I mean, I've got butterflies in my stomach. I'm nervous because I want to prove that it can be done in a short amount of time. And, I've done it. I've seen my students do it all over the country. I know it can be done, but I want to give a day-to-day experience that you can follow along. I've hired a film crew, and I would just want to show that it is possible.
I love that. And, here's the thing. The fact that you feel uncomfortable about it means that you're doing the right thing. Because unless you're pushing yourself, it's so easy to just sit on the couch and not do anything. You've made a lot of money. You've inspired a lot of people. You could not go out there and do this, right? But the fact that you're uncomfortable, you're pushing yourself, starting this again shows that you're on the right path. So my hat is off to you. I don't know that I would want to go back to the early days of when I was driving around without a system, but at least you have a system and a framework in place that you can apply after tried and true that you put to good use. So take me back to I think we skipped the third step in your process because I wanted to hear about this Florida experiment. So recap the first two and then give me the third, if you would.
So one is adding properties to your marketing list. So the app, the criteria, adding properties. The second part to the course is reaching out to them, postcards, cold calling. There's other things that I don't teach that I do know I have students that have done well with. So you can do things like door knocking, text messages, emails. You can show up in their news feed and social media if they have a social media. You can do ringless voicemails. There's lots of different strategies, but I just teach those two. They're my favorite. They've been the most profitable across the country. And so those are the two I teach. And then the third step is hiring one person to automate the entire system for you. Everything from driving and adding properties consistently, sending the postcards, buying phone numbers and skip tracing them and uploading them into your Mojo system. And so that's the third step, is just automating it. So you can live your best life, whatever that looks like. For me, it's inspiring and giving people permission to take control of their financial lives, right? To show them the American dream is still alive. Like, that's my life's mission. And I have 2 children that I love. I spend a ton of time with them. I spend a ton of time with my wife. I spend a ton of time in the mountains because I love the mountains. And I do that as well. But, everyone's dream life is a little different. And, I want people to be able to become the most beautiful person that they can, and give as much back to this world as they can. And if you're constantly just chasing a paycheck, and you're constantly worried about money, you'll never be able to do things that can inspire a community, that can inspire a nation. But if you have the freedom of money, money's not a burden anymore. You can do things like what I'm doing. You can inspire others to and do whatever's important to you. So
I love that. You inspired me. I thought I was listening to a State of the Union address there for a moment, but yours was actually better, way better. So good stuff, my friend. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to follow this journey, and I'm super excited about our live webinar, how we can help people. This question comes up all the time, whether I publish something on social media. People say, look, I have no money, or I have very little money, and I just want to get started. This is how you do it. And then what I want you to do, though, is start taking the profit that you make from Zack and start putting it into buy and hold properties. Start turning those dollars into buy and hold rental portfolio. So get me beyond your course now. Tell me where you are with that. What kind of assets are you holding on to, or are you in that process that you can start creating that cash flow and passive income from rental properties?
Yeah, so I actually had, through wholesaling, I had cherry picked, right? I had found some deals that had assignable contracts on, and I could have sold them to other flippers or buy and hold investors, but I went, wait a minute, there's a ton of money here. I'm going to keep a rental. And so I picked up a condo not too far from here, and my monthly payment on it was like $500 a month. I was renting it out for $1,000 and $1,050 a month, which is very good for Utah. We're a pretty inflated market. It's not a very good cash flowing market. But I picked that one up, seller finance actually, with $2,000 down, which is absolutely crazy. You can't really do deals that good unless you're sourcing them. So I was able to pick that deal up. I held it for 2 years, and I just sold it. And I never did any remodel to it. I just rented it out as is, sold it as is. I went to the house twice total the entire time, and I made almost $90,000 profit when I sold it. And it was a fantastic deal. But I've picked up a bunch of rentals now and sold them with like rent to own options, and made tons of money throughout the rental process, and then cashing them out. And I am looking to, I actually have started. I just purchased a house last week in Texas. So I'm looking to open up another, market in the Midwest. We chose Texas because of the cash flow opportunities. You can rent properties out for way more compared to the purchase price here in Utah. So a lot of the stuff I'm doing in Utah, I'm actually just assigning to flippers, just because the rent to value ratios aren't very strong here. So that is definitely a play. That's wealth. That's generational wealth. That's freedom, is having assets that pay you over.
And I love that you're in Texas, doing Texas. That's one of my favorite markets for my company. We're building over 400 new construction properties there this year. So love that market. You're right. The cash flow is great. And the space, there's so much space. And it's the #1 landlord friendly state in the country too, which also is a nice bonus on top. Well, I love this, man. I'm excited about our live webinar. I'm excited to see your journey on this $1,000 in Florida for 40 days. I like that. I think we should do a challenge here on the show too. I'm going to think about something I can do for my audience as well. So Zack, so great. Again, that link is in the description below here on the show. And come on over and sign up for the webinar where Zack and I are going to deep dive some of these strategies if you want to get started with this. It's morrisinvest.com/driving. Just driving. morrisinvest.com/driving. And I'm excited about all of this, Zack. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clayton. And then could we also add a link to the YouTube channel so they can tune in and watch that challenge?
Oh, sure. So we'll put a link to your YouTube so we can watch and follow along for the 40 days. I can't wait to see that as well. We'll have a link in the show notes. About
the time we launch this video to your audience, I'll be just about ready to leave. And so So if it's not there yet, make sure you guys subscribe to that channel so you see the content as it starts to be released.
Love it, love it. Well, thanks so much, Zack. Real pleasure hanging out with you today, and I'm excited about our live webinar where we get to go even deeper in this.
Awesome. Thanks, Clayton.
Man. And thanks to all of you for downloading and subscribing. We try to bring you as much information here as possible to help you build financial intelligence so you can build financial freedom. Now go out there, become a real estate investor. I believe it's the #1 way to build wealth. Hit subscribe and turn on the little bell notification dingus so you'll be notified the next time we publish a video. We'll see you next time, everyone.